Open mic.
I got a whole bunch of wireless stuff. No,
It's not live.
yeah, I've got a better setup than you got.
It's not a good example. I should
I mean,
have
for something like this,
today.
I got wireless and you pass me.
You told me, but it didn't, it has the wrong stuff in it.
I thought he was just recording.
We could do it like a town meeting and have the microphone on. We have to raise their hand, they could go.
Well, I thought about that, but I'm not sure if people want to do that. If people want to walk up the microphone.
I think there'd be a lot of travel back and forth.
Yeah.
The guy that had some.
See, you only want that. I got a ton of.
You just had a job.
I'm not sure what it was. All right, thank you for coming this evening, and I appreciate those who did come out. And so we are recording this meeting. The only way I know how to record with the system that we have is to record it live. So we're recording it live through our YouTube feed, so that we can, go back to it if we want to, if anybody else who isn't here wants to see it, or if we want to reference it. This microphone in the front here towards the audience, the idea is that it'll pick up your voice later on when we have a question and answer time. And so speak loud if you got a question, and hopefully that microphone will pick you up. I thought about making people walk up to the microphone, but we'll just see if this works out and see how that goes. So we do have an agenda for this evening, and this is our agenda. So I'm going to open us up in a word of prayer and then make a few opening comments here. So let's pray. Lord Jesus, we do thank you for this opportunity we have to discuss the building project of our church and the direction that you would have us to go. And Lord, more important than anything is that we do and know your will. And Lord, I pray that you would direct and guide through this. Lord, we do love each other, and we desire your will and want to be an outreach to this area and want you to continue to bless and help us to grow. And Lord, I pray that we would do our best in seeking you out in all these things. Be with this meeting, Lord, direct during this time. May this be informative. May this help us to understand. And Lord, may it help us, Lord, to come to the conclusions you would have us to come to throughout this. In Jesus' name, amen. So if we look at this agenda, a couple things I want to point out about it is that there is a time for question and answer. And so we're not going to field a lot of questions up before that point, but there will be sort of a review of some of the slides we're going to look at the end, in case you thought of a question, but you just can't think of what it was. But in order to just keep the meeting moving, we're going to allow for the question and answer time, and you can ask questions at that time. If you really have something you want to ask or say at any point, we'll certainly address that, and that's fine, but we do want to keep things moving. So, but there'll be plenty of time during the question and answer time for any questions that you may have. And also, just like we do at our men's breakfast, so at 8:30, we're going to allow people to leave if they want. Some people, at a certain point, they want to go, but it's just awkward to get up when everybody else is still talking. Okay, so at 8:30, you're welcome to stay. You're welcome to be part of the meeting. If you want to have more questions, we can certainly continue that. But I'm going to let people know at 8:30 that it is 8:30, and that if you need to leave, that's okay to leave. No one's going to call you out or anything. Just so, at that time, we'll be, hopefully we'll be done by then. If we're not, but people need to go, it won't be an awkward thing. And of course, you need to go before that. That's also fine too. If you need to leave at any time, that's perfectly fine. But just so you know, at 8:30 will be a time when you can leave without feeling like you're leaving the meeting early, kind of a thing. So keep that in mind as well. And so we did send out the surveys, asking people several questions, and the whole idea was that we would have plenty of space or encourage comments. So people, if the answers to these questions didn't fit what they were thinking, they could just put in a comment of some sort and certainly express what they would like to do or not do, or that kind of thing. And so what we're going to have in a moment here, and Jaren's going to walk us through the survey results. We're going to have the results from that survey. And a couple things you need to keep in mind about that is it was a little bit difficult to get all the information sort of in a slide presentation here, but I think we did get a good general feel of where people are at throughout all of this. And we sent out 43 surveys, and we got back 26 of them, I think it is. And keep in mind, of those 26, maybe a family got one, and the husband and wife wanted to do with them individually, and so they made a copy of it so that the husband or wife, or we had somebody else ask, can we get one, because we want to do it ourselves, we don't want to. So out of that 43 that we sent out, there was one in particular that they actually asked if they could have another one because the husband and wife wanted to do it. So that would be 44. But that being said, out of the 26 that we got back, some of those were copied ones. And so, just to keep that in mind. So, and also as part of this, maybe somebody didn't, there were 3 options on a question and they didn't pick any of the options. They just wrote in a comment, right? So that's kind of end up reflecting in some of this results as well. And so all that being said, we'll definitely go through this and you can see what the overall view is. And I think we do get a good picture of where people are kind of at on most of these things as far as what the questions were. So we're going to have the questions, we're going to have the results, we're going to have a generalization of all the comments people made. And so we're excited to go through it and see what people said. So Jaren, if you want to come up at this time, and he put this together, so we're going to let him show up.
So now to try and explain the results. So as Pastor was mentioning, it was difficult to collect the data and put it in a way that was presentable because of how the data came in. But so what you're looking at, just all these slides will be formatted very similar to this. So just on this first slide to explain it, the vertical scale is actually based on the number of surveys that went out. So that was 43. Yeah. So 43, and then 26 that actually came in. So the percentages are based on what came in, not what went out, if that makes sense. So the vertical scale gives you an idea of overall how much was voted on, and then the percentages of what came in. So first question, biggest need. What do you think is our biggest need? A, more Sunday school space, or B, auditorium space, or other? I know what I ended up doing, we went through the comments and I tried to categorize them based on how many comments were made of each of those categorized areas. So there was a number of comments made on the kitchen renovation. So those are the top ones in order going down. Pretty much it was split, a little bit more on the Sunday school, as far as responses saying that was a bigger need. Debt comfort. How comfortable are you with the debt? Should never have any debt. Debt is okay if it's easily manageable. Whatever we must do to get the job done. Obviously, the majority of people thought it was, as long as it was manageable. The other comments, basically out of the comments, 6 did not support debt and 5 did support debt. When to start? This was, I think, the lowest response as far as the A, B, or C, but the other, there was quite a few comments. But when do you think is a good time to start building? As soon as the money starts coming, as soon as we have raised all the money, or not until we secure the loan? Like I said, it was pretty well evenly split between those, but then a lot of comments came in. Majority of them leaned towards and keep in mind, if you don't see your comments in here, so these were generalized, right? So somebody might have said when at least half's been raised, and somebody else might have said, well, when the majority's been raised. So I kind of grouped those into like that top one. So obviously you see there that either when all the money or the majority of the money has been raised is where most of the comments fell. Internal work, how much of the work should we do ourselves? Again, the majority of people sided with as much as possible on that, as well as the comments. So nobody said we should do all of it. So I think Dan can take a breath. Yeah. The fund shortfall, this was evenly split. And anyway, so what is the best course of action if we don't raise all the money needed? Use the money to renovate or get a loan to finish the work or other. There was a lot of comments. It was split. I think with this question, hindsight, it's a big difference if there's a 90% shortfall or 10% shortfall. So you're going to answer the question different, depending on what that shortfall is. So it was kind of in my opinion, that's probably why it was split the way it was. But a lot of the comments did lean towards renovation or waiting until we were able to build. Land purchase, that was another one where it was pretty sided with, most thought it was yes, a good idea. Question being, we have an opportunity to the 10 acres to the south of here. And so majority, even in the comments, were in favor. There was 3 that was unsure and then 2 opposed. Then the opposing comments, again, so I kind of grouped these, the top 4 or 5 were opposing. The bottom weren't necessarily opposing to build, but suggestions on what to do. So many of the comments sided with the renovate, improve, or optimize our current properties first. I say properties because there's comments in there with, regarding like the parsonage, for instance. Pay off debt, prioritize the land first. Again, wait on the Lord till it's really clear to build. Go to 2 morning services. Those are all pretty much, I guess, comments lean towards the opposing, where the others were just that, were comments or suggestions on what to do if not enough came in. Or so I think that leads us to actually the key takeaways. So I'll let Pastor kind of wrap that up.
So see, here is the takeaways from all that information. Many people recognize the needs, and that was expressed quite a bit as far as the surveys that came in. And so most are comfortable with manageable debt. And as Jaron pointed out, it depends on what people define as manageable. And so that would be something that, would need to be addressed as that came up. One thing I want everyone to be aware of is that we're not going to move forward spending a lot of money unless everybody's aware of it. It will go up to a church vote. I'm not going to. In fact, that's what prompted the sending out the surveys and having this meeting and slowing things down. Not necessarily slowing things down, but it prompted taking time to get more information out, because we actually did purchase conceptual plans, which are just a broad idea of what we want to do. We spent $4,000 on that. And then the next step would be to go towards making submittable plans that you could submit to the state for approval. And we got a quote back for that proposal at right around $40,000 just to get those plans done. And I was advised by several people that you make sure you have good submittable plans to send in. Don't try to get around that. You have to get good submittable plans to the state if you're doing a public building, because they're going to come through and they could bring everything to a screaming halt if you're trying to do something that's not part of your plans. So when we got that price tag, I said, and the deacons and all, I agreed, and the deacons, we talked about it, and we said, well, we're not going to move forward with this. We're not going to spend that kind of money without a church vote and without people knowing what we're doing. And so that being said, right, that's what prompted this meeting, and that's where I want you guys to know that we're not going to do anything financially that would be a big decision without everybody knowing about it and without it going to a church vote. Most prefer majority of funds to be raised first, and I guess I would be in agreement with that. In fact, that would be the one thing that would be the big hang up on all this. If we had $1 million, we'd say, let's do it, and all of us would be in agreement. We don't have $1 million. So most people do prefer, though, that we need to raise money. Most prefer majority of the funds be raised first. Most prefer to do as much of the work as we can, and we can do a lot of the work. If, I'm just going to be straight with you guys. Okay, people told me, $1 million is a buzzword. You don't want to use the word $1 million because people will automatically think $1 million. What? No, just don't use that word. But I'll just be very straight with you. If we hired out a company to just come and build this, it would cost $1.2 million. And that's just the reality. People who are in construction and do that kind of work, that number doesn't surprise them at all. People who don't do that kind of work and they're not into that, they would say, well, that's a lot of money, but that is what it is. So Brickell Brothers came out and they looked at it, and they looked at our conceptual plans, and they said we could do it, and we start in the spring and be done over the summer, and it would cost right around 1.2 million, and we would end up probably spending more than that in all reality. Every time I've gotten a quote on anything, it always ends up being a little bit more than what was quoted. So that being said, we could save a lot of that money by doing a lot of the work ourselves. That number could come down, and we do have capable people of doing that kind of work, and that certainly would save us a lot of money. And so we have a great relationship with those in Whitehall, the inspectors and the people who work down in Whitehall. And so I believe a lot of the work that we could do could be done in a way that obviously would be approved and okay. And so we would save a ton of money if we did a lot of the work ourselves. How to, what do we do? And that's the biggest fear I've had. What do we do if we begin to raise money and we don't raise enough money? What do we do if we're short of what we need to do, but yet we're sitting on a big pile of cash? What do we do at that point, right? And the comments leaned in both directions. It seems like everybody's in agreement that we do need to take care of and update the property we have, and maybe some renovations would be very nice, and we certainly should do that. But it was a little bit split on what we should do with that. If people give specifically towards a new building project, and they say, I'm giving this money towards a new building project, then legally we have to use it on a new building project. And so it is pretty split, and we can certainly talk about that. And then as far as the land next door and purchasing that land, most people, overwhelmingly people, seem to be in favor of that. And so those are some closing comments, and we're going to open this up for question and answer. And so that's sort of a recap of all that has been done and said. We can certainly go back to any of these slides if you wanted to see any of them or talk about any of them. I realize it's kind of a lot of information quickly. And so, any questions that you guys have? Yes, Larry.
Jehovah Jireh fund,
Pardon me?
Jehovah Jireh.
So we did contact Jehovah Jireh, and they help out new start churches. So they don't send money to a church that's already established. Their whole thing is a church that is just starting, and they're like in a storefront rental somewhere, and they want to get into a building, and that's their emphasis. So they said they wouldn't be able to help us. So, yes, Laura.
Would like Masters Craftsmen or a place like, would they be able to help with some of the building and stuff too?
Yeah, absolutely. And that would be Masters Craftsman's whole ministry is to do the work, labor for free. And so that would certainly be to have a ministry like that come in and help out would to have Masters Craftsmen come in and help out would be, we would have to have our ducks in a row. So when they came, we got work for them ready to go when they get here. But yeah, they would certainly, Brother Joss would certainly want to help our church out for sure. John?
So you're talking about raising money and borrowing. Obviously, you're not gonna raise $1 million. So what kind of money are you talking about us raising to where you think it's enough to make this go?
So that's a great question. And in case the microphone didn't pick you up, I think you're asking is how much money are we looking to raise before we actually say this is enough, we can go ahead with this,
Yeah.
right? So my first question is, and let me say this before I ask the question, I am not set on getting this done. I don't feel like we have to build it. We're not to the point where we have to build a new building or a new addition. I think that it would certainly help in a lot of areas. And I think that some people, maybe if you're not in those areas or you're not working or ministering in those areas, you don't see the need as much as those who do. We do have people that have Sunday school in the lunchroom downstairs. And we have to put 2 Sunday schools in that big room downstairs, and the 2 classes, it can work or it can't work depending. Some of the teachers are frustrated with that because you can hear the other class. Wednesday night, we do our patch club on the lunch table in the lunchroom, which isn't very much space for a bunch of kids to do stuff. And so, if you're working in one of those ministries, you're like, man, we really do need some more room here. We need to do something. There are occasional Sundays where we really pack this room out, and we could really, and it happens often enough to where it'd be something to look into as far as our building. But all that being said, and getting to your question, I want to first say that I'm not bent on saying we have to do this. I am not pushing this through saying, if the Lord made it obvious to me that we need to go forward with a building project, I'm asking the Lord would make it obvious to all of us, not just me, because I don't want to try to convince you. If the Lord said to me or made it obvious to me in some way, and he did make it obvious to you, I would be like, thanks, Lord. I appreciate that. Now I got to convince everybody else. So I think the Lord can make it obvious to all of us so that we can all move forward with that. And so that being said, the question I would have is, should we raise money as far as the building project is concerned? That's one of the questions that I wanted to present tonight. So if we start out with, should we even raise money and go forward with the building project, then we would have to talk about how much money do you want to raise before you actually start. John?
I don't think that we could raise enough money to where I would be comfortable in doing it. And I got a lot to say on this, but I kind of want other people to be able to talk first. I was trying to wait.
Sure.
I'm one of the people that's against borrowing the money.
Right. And Jared made a really good point. If we end up needing $800,000 and we raise, over 700,000, that's a little bit easier to say, well, let's borrow the rest and get this done. If we need 800,000 when we raise 150,000, then we're like, well, do we really want to borrow that kind of money? So there's a difference. I do think that we are seriously heading into very uncertain times, and it may not be the wisest thing to do right now to borrow money. And so I completely sympathize with that. And I'm not so convinced it's a good idea either. How much, and to your question then would be, how much are we going to raise before we decide, okay, this is enough to where we can do this? Maybe it's just a matter of saying, let's start raising money, but it's going to take some time. Maybe we won't be able to build for a couple more years, or whatever. Yeah. And so maybe it'll take a while before we can actually build. And for every comment you make, there's always a rebuttal. Well, every year you don't build, that's just the cost of buildings going up, every year. And so you can't make a comment without someone having an opinion on why you should do it differently. So, Jim?
I was just going to say too, if it takes too long, then things are going to just plain start slowing down simply because people are saying, well, nothing's happening anyway, so why keep getting?
Yeah.
So you've got to kind of find a happy medium of sorts.
Right. We don't want to drag it out. What you're saying, we don't want to drag it out too long, or you're going to lose a lot of momentum. People are going to say, why are we giving to this if nothing's happening?
Exactly.
Right. Absolutely. Jimmy? Jimmy? Yeah, you're Jimmy.
As a thought going down the road, if we don't, or we're in a fix where we're not really raising the money we need, what about the possibility of like portable classrooms? You know, they're like trailers and you know, like high schools use them a lot when they run out
Right.
of space.
These are actually, that's what these buildings are.
That's what these,
That's what this building is.
What?
Yeah.
that's what this is.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
That's how we got.
so what do we do? What are some options if we don't raise enough money is a great question. And so that's something we'll have to discuss, you know, if we get to that point. I guess what I want to center on is, should we even start raising money and going forward with this? That's a very difficult question to ask, because if we had a crystal ball and we knew that if we started raising money and we could raise the whole thing in 1 year, we'd all say, let's do it then. But we don't have a crystal ball and we can't see the future, right? I'm using, hope you don't mind, Jim, I'm using your, what you guys say as a mechanic, I don't have a crystal ball. So it is a difficult question to ask. I guess one thing that I really want to prevent, and I mean, this is the last thing I want, is for anybody to just say, I'm just pushing away from the table. I'm done. They can't figure this out. They don't know what to do. I'm tired of hearing about it. I'm leaving. That's the last thing that any of us want. As a family, a church family, right? We don't want this to allow it to divide us. And this is one of the reasons why I'm being very clear and open about this, so that we can do this together, you know? And so, Larry?
So if you dedicate money to a fund called, for the building account,
Right.
and it doesn't happen, then you have, however much money in there,
Mm-hmm.
and people have designated that money for that.
Right.
I think maybe it shouldn't just be for the building account, or the new building, it should be for remodeling,
Sure.
possibly. I mean, because if you word it in that way, and people are given money for that, and then it doesn't happen, I mean, what do you do then?
You either gotta offer it back to them.
Right.
Or say that it can go, you want us to push this to the remodel fund, but it should be offered back to them. If you can keep track of what they gave.
Right.
Otherwise, do like you say, and you just say it's a general building
Mm-hmm.
fund, whatever we do, it's either, whether it be remodel or,
Yeah.
or add on.
So and we've talked about this a lot, and that's what we talked about a lot in the deacons meeting. Is there some way we could raise money where everybody understands that we're raising money towards a new building or renovation, right? So if you give money towards this project, we can use it for renovating the current building, and you fully understand that. So we don't have to ever come back to you and say, we're giving this money back because we're not doing the building project, but you fully know ahead of time that we're going to use it one of two ways. And I can guarantee you, but I can say that we're not going to use that money to get a new shuttle bus or to, whatever. We will use the money on this building or on the addition. How many of you guys, let me just ask a quick question about this. How many of you guys think that that would be a good idea if we could do that? Right. So, Randy.
I think all of that is fair to put out there like that. This is a great first step in keeping that from happening, and that's communication. And I know we
Right.
talked about that at breakfasts and whatever being open, but another thing I think that should be thought through is maybe doing some benchmarks and a timeline, not set in stone, nothing that you're gonna be necessarily held to, but to give an idea that, yes, we are making progress. Some people might think we need to do it in a year like you thought.
Yeah.
Some might be looking at 5 years, but if you put it out there that this is our benchmark, this is what we're shooting for by the end of 2022, blah, 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 and at least in your communicating like this, I don't think anyone can come back and
Right.
say, well, gee, you didn't let me know anything.
And that's certainly our goal to alleviate,
I think it needs to be a set,
yeah,
somewhat of a number or a timeline
sure.
that you can hold up to that.
So two things that I think are a downfall to this idea of we're going to ask people to give money towards renovating / new building project, right? Everybody understands that it can go to either one. The two downfalls are, number one, if in the process of renovating, we spend a lot of money, and if we had been smarter about it, we could have been using that money towards a new building, right? Because, you know, the way to alleviate that would be to do things that are actually things that would be done if we're going to do it anyways in the new building project. For example, with the new building project, the auditorium will be on this side of this wall, and where we're sitting now will all be foyer-way space. Well, if we do new flooring in here, new carpeting, whatever, with the idea that this is going to be a foyer-way someday, that's actually money we're using toward renovation, which will also be towards the new building. That's you know. The only other downfall I could think of is it may not raise the excitement or the momentum of this is a new building and we're going to build it, and man, everybody's excited about that. Rather, we're saying we're going to have money set aside for a new building or renovation, and people might say, well, we want to give, but we want to give towards a new building, not fixing this place up or whatever.
Could we just be more, communicate more as far as like what we could do to not just renovate this building, I'm saying make this building work for what we need for space, because we talked
Sure.
about that. And I know, if we need more classroom space, I don't know, if we need, more auditorium space, have the platform back, like utilize the
Right.
space that we have and just try to make what we have work. I don't feel comfortable getting into any building project because of the economy and the direction that it's going personally. And so I'm good with just trying to
Make it work.
make it work.
I'm sorry, Dee Dee, your hand was up.
It's okay. I was just thinking, if we did have a building fund, would it ever have a chance to grow if we were just dipping into it constantly to renovate?
Right, and that's where I think that any renovations that we do, just like Randy was saying, right, could be in steps or stages where everybody knows we're spending $6,000 or whatever on the flooring in here. So everybody knows that that's what we're doing with it. So we're not just, Dan and I want to do something, so we're going to go do that and spend a couple $100 here or there, and all of a sudden we're eating away at that. Now, that being said, we currently have a building fund. We voted in 2019 to actually, as a church, add to that fund on a monthly basis, and that account right now is at $22,000. Well, $22,000 can do a lot of renovating around here. And so the majority of that is money that the church has set aside over the last couple of years. There is some folks who gave towards that, and before we've even actually started raising money. So that being said, we could probably approach those folks if we decide to go with renovation/new building fundraiser. John?
Well, first, I just want to say, whatever the church decided, both my wife and I, we're not going to be hurt or,
Sure.
if we decide to go against what we want,
Mm.
we're not going to leave the church or be bitter against anybody. But I just kind of wanted to state what my thoughts were is I'm not for adding on a new auditorium. I am for adding on a classroom or two,
Mhm.
something small, manageable. I'm for cutting back this platform
Sure.
and, adding 2 more rows of seats in here, or at least 1. And I think for space, another thing is a lot of people, without thinking about it, set things on the front row here,
Yeah.
instruments or whatever, in Sunday school when it's not that crowded. And then people come to sit, they see that they go sit down, and then even before service starts, that stuff might get moved. But the seating was already passed up. So I think there's things we can do to make more seating.
Sure.
And I definitely know that we need more Sunday school space and, stuff like that. But carpet is supposed to be 5 years is the lifespan of carpet, and we're just pushing this too
I think we're
far.
at 30.
And even if you were going to build a brand new building, you got to replace this carpet.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this was good carpeting, because for how old it is, it's holding up pretty well. But yeah, it does need to be replaced.
To Dee Dee's comment where the money's going to get.
I'm gonna call you next, Jimmy. If you want to put your arm down, you're probably getting your arm tired there.
To Dee Dee's comment, it's dipping into that money to fix this up. Well, this should come first. I mean, you're not tearing down this building to build the next building.
Right.
So this building should get, and I think that kind of frustrates a lot of people that see that this building's not getting the maintenance it needs. And then we're talking about go, building this other thing, and we can't even take care of the building we have.
Right. And that was actually reflected in I don't know what percentage it would be, but quite a bit of the comments that came back, that we really need to start taking care of stuff that we have here. And I take responsibility for that. We should be doing a better job of making sure that this place gets more updated. And
Show God that we can take care of what he's given us,
Yes.
and he will give us more.
absolutely.
Good point.
So, Jimmy, your hand was up?
Well,
You forgot what you were going to say.
my question's quite a ways back now, but I was just gonna say, okay, well, we're having meetings like this.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we just go ahead, start the building fund, and then when we get to a certain point, we're all gonna know if we're gonna make it or not. And we can have another meeting about that.
Sure.
And as far as like dipping into the building fund, we can always put a ceiling on what we take from it if we do need it. After all, it's all going into the church.
Right. Right.
But I mean, if we reach, if we raise 200,000 and we're like, okay, well, we're still 2 years out.
Mm.
I don't think we're gonna do it. Then we can all decide, have a vote and take all
Sure.
that money and do what we need to do here.
Well, I agree with what you're saying. I do think that if we approach this on the front end the right way, people can understand that we are, doing this in certain phases, and that the money, that part of our fundraising money is all part of renovating and working on this building, and with the goal of maybe putting on the new building, putting on the new addition. And so, if we only ever get $200,000 over the next couple of years, then I think everybody, because they were upfront, knew that. And we could certainly continue to get that information. I'm not saying we're not going to, but people can know upfront. We fully intended to use that towards this building as well. And we all knew going into this that maybe we wouldn't raise enough, and that maybe we wouldn't be able to have this newer auditorium, new building. Karen?
Okay, so this totally changes the subject.
Okay.
I guess I didn't understand why the land purchase was thrown in there when we're debating between what we should do with this building or build a new building. Yes, if we have a new building, we would probably need parking space, we have some land. So in all this, if we say we're gonna raise money, I guess personally, I would hope that all of a sudden we wouldn't decide to buy this land and not use it for renovate.
No, so
I think it was the one or the other kind of a deal, what was priority, what people thought, if what we just needed more, if we should jump on the opportunity to buy the land,
Right.
or if you thought it was more important to add on.
I thought the response was that a lot of people were in favor of doing this land.
of doing what?
Buying the
Buying
land.
the land.
Buying the land?
What was the?
Yeah, overwhelmingly people think we should buy the land. I think it's a good opportunity. And
Can you expound on that? I guess I don't understand how the two are connected or where it came in.
as far as the building project goes, and as far as the purchase of the land goes, they're not necessarily connected. Maybe that question shouldn't have been on there. I apologize. When we first thought to ourselves, we were growing and it'd be nice to have more space. The first question is, let's build a new building. That's the first statement, right? Well, if we're going to build a new building, where are we going to put it? Jim owns the land right here, and he has expressed that he would like to sell it to the church. But because we haven't purchased it yet, it's all still negotiable. It's not like he has to sell it to us. But so then we think, well, we got this land over here. If he sells it to us, we could build a new building, and maybe that's a good idea. Well, then you look into the cost of that, and you go from trying to raise a little over $1 million to raising over $3 million, easy, because that's just raw land. I mean, you don't have anything over there. So, so that's what the original first thought. Well, then after that cost, we thought it's going to save us a lot of money actually to build onto this, and so that's how the land was even in the discussion and part of the survey. Yes, Tom?
Just basically that when we talked about building a new building and where would we put it, I said, well, I've got this over here.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in that. So that's kind of how that got started.
Right. And as far as building a new building, it's probably something that's far beyond what we could afford to do. And even if we could afford to do it, could we afford to maintain that? Then that's, as far as building a new building, maybe that's not a good idea. As far as just purchasing the land, because it's just a wise investment, it's a whole separate subject. But I think as a person, I think it's a good investment for the church. Karen?
So do we need land if we were to add on to this church?
We don't need land to do the existing plans that we have. Right. So it really is two different subjects, and I apologize about that.
I felt like it was, and the response that, yeah, people thought it was a good investment, I'm like, I just.
What does that have to do with building a new building? And it really kind of doesn't, because,
I mean, you're gonna put all this money into land and then you can't build a building.
right.
But yeah, land.
Yeah. So if we were to go forward, and I'm getting the idea from just talking to you guys that everybody's all for trying to raise the money and making it very clear that we can use that money towards this building, and if we get enough, we can use it towards the addition, right? If I started my sentence, no, I'm not sure where I was going with that, but it's a good idea. Yes, John.
He's the right center, let him go first there.
Who's that? Larry? Yeah.
Is blacktop included in the building fund?
So I think we have enough money as a church outside of the building fund to re-blacktop the parking lot.
Well, I mean, add on some spaces.
Pardon me?
To add on.
Make it bigger.
Oh, make it bigger. Oh. I think that it could be. I think a lot of people really think that we should. And I think that would be easy to add on to that, because parking really is a problem out here. I
When
mean,
you say re-blacktop, you mean re-seal coat?
well, when I was saying sealing the parking lot, that's something we can afford to do with the church. You're talking about adding on to the parking, right? And I think it could. I think it would be a good idea to use some of that money that comes in for that. Basically, anything that would improve the fact that we're growing, right? That makes sense? I got some people looking at me like, I don't know if we should do that. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Because as new people come, and if they pull in and there's no place to park, I remember when we were first new, it was like, I don't know what these other houses are. Can I block their driveway? And
Right.
it could make you just turn around and leave
Sure.
because you don't know where to go.
There's no, yeah, if the parking's not convenient or easy to see, yeah, for sure. John?
I think that the parking lot should be expanded out front, right in
That's
front of
what I
that
do too.
railing for more
Yeah.
handicap spots. With a ramp coming up there, 'cause we're short handicap spots there, to be real close.
Yeah.
We're gonna expand it, but that should be there.
You'd have to show me what you're talking about, but I mean, there is handicap spots right there by the
The other thing I was gonna say
railing.
before that was, the problem we have with doing the maintenance on this church is because nobody wants to do anything that's gonna have to be redone later when you add on. And I think we
Right.
need to get out of that mentality and
Sure,
like this auditorium should be fixed up.
yeah,
And not worry, that should be a second step
right.
but we should vote on that, but I mean, that should be.
Yeah.
a second.
So don't not do it just because if we build someday, we may have to redo it. Don't, yeah,
Yeah,
right,
because I mean, this church tends to drag its feet quite a bit.
yeah.
Aw.
So let's just all live in reality land that whatever we agree on is not gonna happen in the timeline that it says. And realize that even if this was full go ahead, that the new addition's not gonna happen right away. So-
Yeah, right. So I will say this, there is some safety in that, right? There is some safety in the fact that it's a slow process. And so nothing's going to happen that you're going to think to yourself, when did that happen? What are they doing? So there'll be plenty of time to see it come to fruition.
Yes.
Donna?
Do we have a timeline in mind, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, is there? And the reason I'm asking is because if you look around, there's quite a few of us that may not be even here in 3 years. Just saying.
Sure.
There's a lot of us that are retired and, maybe our body. I'm
Yeah.
not including myself, I'm just saying. us.
Oh.
Who knows our physical?
So,
We're gonna be like-
in all honesty, as far as I'm sorry, go ahead.
We're gonna be doing the work ourselves. You got John and Jaron and, Dan.
Hey, don't forget Larry.
You gotta kind of weigh that out,
Sure.
Who's gonna be here to do it? The honest, be honest.
Sure. So an answer to that question is, I don't,
Hit by a bus tomorrow.
the answer to the question as far as the timeline, no, we don't have a timeline right now because it all depends on what kind of money comes in, so we can't really do that. Jim?
So the thing is, as far as saying doing it ourselves, that is also including masters craftsmen. Now, they build buildings from the ground up. So that's,
If you've ever
we're
been
not
home-
talking about every single one of us, putting in this out here. I mean, sure, we'll put in some time, but I've been on some of those building trips and I've seen some of the projects that they do,
Sure.
how long they spend on these. So, you've got to keep that into consideration, if we plan this and they get a crew here,
It won't take them.
yeah.
Quite a bit can be done in a week's time with
Well,
an
and
ministry like
they
that.
They
Yeah,
do actually like whole month-long
sure.
projects, when it comes to
Right.
basically.
So included, I guess what you're saying, included in this phrase, we'll do the work ourselves, is just basically saying not having the contractor do it. If we
Right.
do it as a craftsman, or if we do some of it, or whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah.
There are not only is there masters craftsmen, Ron, they.
Sure.
They got a group that came in that did all the.
Yeah.
Renovating stuff and to put their, new elevator and all that kind of stuff in. And so
There are ministries
there
out
are
there.
ministries out there, so when we
Right.
when we say do it ourselves, basically what we're saying is not have the contractor do it, because there's
Right.
a lot of outfits.
There's a lot of resources we could tap into.
A lot of
Yeah.
resources to tap into.
Lou, do you have your hand up?
Well, just piggybacking on that, a couple of things I piggyback on. But, to Donna's point, as long as Jim's tracking and the church is tracking with that outside resources, beyond that, then you have to itemize your resources.
Right.
So, as you just said, who is really available? And that needs to be
Right.
itemized, whether it's, and you gotta have some levels of commitment in some sort of reasonable timeline also.
Right.
But
Sure.
that needs to be on paper. You can't just hypothetically say, yeah, we're just gonna do this ourselves.
Right.
So this all has to be itemized.
Right.
And if you've got church members that are capable, I don't know which end of a hammer to hold, but I can pick up nails or whatever, but I don't think it's realistic to say the church body is going to fill an addition. But if you've got all this other, you'll never know any of that until you itemize it all.
Right.
In some detail.
And then you're gonna have to come to a point where this is a timeline, because it's gonna take, they've gotta be scheduled and know ahead of time and stuff like that. So you're gonna.
So basically, as a church, we're a general contractor, and we have to organize how these things, if I understand what a general contractor is. But they have to make sure that, our first step here is to put in the frost walls and lay the slab. Well, who can do that? When can we do that? When that's done, what's going to be next? Who can we line up to do what the next step
You
is?
wanna have that all
Settled ahead of
line up
time.
these resources well before anything started.
Right.
This is what's available to us if we decide.
Because if you line things up at least a year in advance, they will be on time and be there no matter what. 'Cause that's how it works.
So,
I'm just kidding.
let me just, listening, and we're only here for a couple of years, and so we're brand new to the whole thing, but, having seen some other churches go through something like this. Again, I sided a lot more, I want to just piggyback with John, and on the whole concept, I want to think and ask the church to think about out of the box thinking a little bit. I threw some stuff at you one time.
Sure.
I mean, you talk about the super valuable space up here, the closet back here in your offices, are those,
Sure. And
those are, just a second, let me just
No, go
finish
ahead.
a couple things.
Nope.
These are some really valuable building space that, yeah, we need a closet, yeah, we need some offices, but do they need to be right here? Yeah, we have the baptismal fount back here in that classroom. Do we need those there at this point in time? What's the most and best use of that space and that space today? Because you could expand this thing and all of a sudden this auditorium is huge. And how are you going to do that? One of the things, you could have a portable, I don't know, we've been here 2 years. I think I've seen one baptism in 2 years over here. So I don't know that that's the wisest and best use of that, to bring in a portable pool, for lack of a better term. How about one to the river? Or, yeah, which quite frankly, yeah, but another church we were at did Riverside baptisms, which was a great outreach event, because then the community sees it happening, by the way, that's another subject. But, so just to say this, but I remember the conversation was, well, what are we gonna do about, we need a closet, we need offices, we need this. I wanted to piggyback on what, because I hadn't thought of it, and I thought Jimmy's point was pretty valid, because again, through Sherry, talking to Sarah and some of the other ladies, I understand that the school, the Sunday school thing, and even the school itself seems to be, and it saw it was a 50-50 thing on the graph, where maybe that's even more of a concern. Like if you could alleviate the auditorium concerns with just pushing out on both ends here, you still got a Sunday school issue and a church school issue. And I hadn't thought of the portable classroom type thing, the trailer business. It seems like that might be a real,
For Sunday school space.
for Sunday school and even the church school, that might be a very affordable
Sure.
alternative for that end of the equation.
So a couple,
So I'm piggybacking on those things,
Yeah.
and kind of asking the church to kind of, again, you gotta think outside the box, besides just, let's go build a new building.
sure.
See now,
And-
Simpson portable class.
Well, if you give enough money, you can have your name on it.
In memory of Jimmy.
And I appreciate you bringing that up. One of the, there are things we can certainly do to expand this current auditorium. And I do agree with you. Maybe we should need to start thinking outside the box a little bit. But there are also some things that are maybe good ideas, but we can't do them. You know, certain walls are supporting walls or that kind of thing. But certainly we need to explore any option that we have to do stuff like that. I mean,
Well, and again, I'm not a contractor, but I mean,
yeah,
when you have a wall, because I do this considering at my house, I mean, you guys tell me, if you have a wall, you put some posts up there.
sure.
You haven't lost your space, you just have a couple of
Right.
posts supporting something.
Yeah.
And so whether you're pushing this and pushing that, and then now your office.
There are certainly
closets
things-
can be in a, in a.
Yeah,
You know,
and there are certain things we can rethink this auditorium and get some more space in here. At the end of the day, this is a small room and, we can make more space in here, but you're never going to get away from, once you get 70 to 80 people in here, it just feels full.
Yeah.
I mean, we could easily fit 90 to 100. We can fit that easy with bringing chairs in and that kind of thing. But that doesn't take away from the fact that everybody feels crowded. Even though you have a seat, you're still sitting right next to somebody. And that kind of is a factor when someone walks in the door. I mean, do I want to go to this church? I mean, it's like crowded in here all the time and nobody goes there anymore. It's too crowded. Just kidding.
Andy, when we talked to Pastor Dahl down in Curtis, they're starting a building project, just like, same time we were. And he said that they were crowded and needed space for 4 years.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting that he said it got to the point where everybody told him, we need to do something finally. You know what I mean? So I don't think we're to that spot yet. I feel like there's still a lot of Sundays that we have plenty of space in here.
Yeah.
And if we
Right.
even if we cut the platform back a little bit and adding a couple more rows, that probably would buy us more time.
Sure.
Even-
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Now-
ask the congregation to kind of cozy up more so that we're not.
It is hard because, it's hard to get in around somebody. So, I mean, even for Jim and I, we like.
Well, and there is something to be said for moving into a much larger auditorium. You lose the feel that you have in a small room and that kind of thing. Now, Danielle's held us up for like a long time. Did you still have something to say or was it?
Kind of just piggybacking off of, look at who we have here to do the work ourselves. Okay, yeah, we have an older group in this room currently, but look at our youth group. It's growing bigger and bigger every year. We have those men. We have Ryan and Mitchell who are growing up. We have Luke. We have Levi. We have all of these men and girls who are more than willing and capable of doing a lot of these things, even if it is, hey, can you just run to the store and pick up these kinds of nails?
With a little direction.
Material.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It
Well, I
would
think
not be difficult.
even that's kind of been the history of our church. I mean, I think Jim talks about getting the teenagers over to put the walls up in the basement and Dick.
Well, being in the music program and Sunday school superintendent, I hang real close to the Sunday school issue. And I've got ideas about a lot of things as far as the Sunday school is concerned. And I did know about other buildings that the schools use for, and I don't know if I was talking to somebody, but that's a big thing. You can get those buildings. You can get a mobile home that's gutted, basically, and turn that into 3 classrooms really easy. And so all of that kind of stuff is not a big deal with me. As far as the auditorium is concerned and having more people in here, I like it when everybody sings because I really like the sound. It's awesome. But as far as that goes, extending this out this way would help not only with the music, because it would help us with, you were raising your hands before, I didn't raise mine. I won't get it hard. What I'm saying is that I'm not opposed to even having 2 services. If it gets to that point where we have so many people here, 2 services, yeah, it's more work for me. We got more music we have to work with. Pastor has to do an extra message, all of that kind of stuff. But 2 services works very well with a lot of big churches that want to build but can't because they can't afford it either. And so it's just something that I don't have a problem with. If we want to have 2 or 3 services, have services all day and people just keep coming, that would be a great day.
But and the reality is we're not to that point yet. To Laura's point, we're not to that point yet, really.
Right.
We are full occasionally, but there are plenty of Sundays where there's plenty of space, and so this is one of the reasons why I'm not pushing this through. I'm not bent on making sure this happens because we don't have to do it. It would help us a lot, but we don't have to. Larry's hand with that. Larry, did you hand it?
What's the cost of materials for the new addition? I've never heard any numbers on.
Right, and we don't have those numbers because we didn't take that step yet. So we do know it's $40,000 to get submittable plans. I would imagine if the architect put together submittable plans, he would have a list of materials. You know what I mean? Because I don't know enough about it. I would think so. And at that point, with that list of materials, we'd get an idea of what it would cost. Yeah. Right, yeah.
Do you have any, is that, when you guys talked to Brickell, did they have any labor versus
No.
materials?
He did not give us a formal bid. He just came and looked at it and talked to us. Yeah.
Does anybody have any idea
No, it's not 50/50.
how it
John will
it's
probably
split?
know. What's your labor cost to materials when you build?
What's the ratio?
What percentage is labor, what percentage is?
Well, some outfits, I don't think most big outfits have a square footage price.
Right.
Right.
And then some small guys, they'll just double the material cost, whatever the material cost on the job, because that's the easy way to bid is just double the material cost and that's their cost, but.
And that covers.
But like I myself, I just picture in my head how many days it takes to do the job, how much I want to make a day, and that's how I do the job.
Yeah.
Add a little extra to cover me. So.
But as far as
Most big outfits are gonna do a square footage price, and I don't know what their. square
okay,
footage price
right,
is.
you don't know what the breakdown of that would
But I
be.
can
As
tell you,
far as,
Brickell Brothers is one of the more expensive outfits to use.
Are they?
So
yeah,
whatever they quoted you, you could get it done cheaper.
and that was a verbal quote.
Yeah.
We didn't really get so Larry, your hand was up.
Yeah, that price that you quoted for like the rent, $40,000,
Yes.
put up an awful nice pole.
Yeah. Right. Now, all these things are brought up, we've talked about a lot. Now, you can put up a pool building, but that's an empty shell pool building.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you still have to put it in.
You got a big chunk of it then.
You still
Right.
have to have a plan.
If it's a public building,
Public building.
You gotta have state plan.
Yeah, we can't just throw up a whole building and start meeting.
without state plans, approval plans. So,
But
Unfortunately.
$40,000.
But the simpler the project, the simpler the plans.
Right.
Less money the plans
Right.
gonna cost.
Yeah. So if we built a pool building that just had a big auditorium and a couple bathrooms, that would be pretty basic, and that would be inexpensive.
Because you can use this for classrooms.
Or if we had it, we probably would want to at least have bathrooms in it. Classrooms and bathrooms, I guess that would be something we could do for
It's nicer,
inexpensive.
personally, it's nice to have a wide building for an auditorium, only
Yeah.
because when you do have plays or you do have programs, you just have extra space to have everybody.
And so that-
This is really narrow.
Right.
We have made it work. I mean, we've had like 3 tiers when we did a school thing once. And it worked, but it was tight.
Yeah.
And I mean, so that way it is nice, like when we do VBS, I don't know if you're gonna do it that way this year, but when Dee Dee turned the auditorium this way and had the cross, it's really, that was really nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just handy, but, you know, we, like you said too, I mean, we gotta do what's practical right now.
Right.
Um,
Dan, your hand was up? Dan?
Mine?
Yeah, you had your hand up.
I guess one of my biggest concerns is, what's our vision?
Yeah.
I mean, the Bible clearly states, where there's no vision, the people perish. If we're gonna be content to keep the same size and grow old and not grow the teen ministry or grow, I still would love to have a bus ministry and reach young people. I know we use Wildwood as an illustration, a lot of things, because that's the church we were out of. But it's grown. If you knew what they came from when it was Southside, it's largely due because of the teen department and the bus ministry. That is where those people that are there now came from. I mean, they were kids at one time and now they're adults and they're supporting that ministry. We just came back from youth conference and heard different, we're talking a mega church, First Baptist in Hammond.
Yeah.
But they strongly, pointed out how strong the teen department is because those kids become adults. And if we're just, as adults, looking at, we're content to be in what we're at. We have enough space for what we have here. But aren't we interested in growing? Aren't we interested in reaching our community and different outreach? And it's going to take space. I'm not saying jump into a building program. I'm just saying we need to consider what we,
Maybe we need to create more of a reason to build a building.
Right.
Maybe we need to get more out there and, get things going more
You
to where we're
see it.
saying,
You see I've been to a lot of churches, whether it's on vacation or just going to youth rallies or whatever, where they have a big, beautiful building, or I shouldn't even say big, where they have a beautiful building and they got content with the ministries they were in and there was no
Right.
growth. And now it's, 50, 60, 70-year-old people and no young people.
yeah,
And it's just that's Monroe and Shirley came out of a church like that.
right.
It just grew old and nothing, and then they just closed the doors because nobody was there to continue the ministry,
Sure.
and
Randy?
I'm not,
Yeah.
it's something that's, and I know everybody knows this, it needs to be a matter of prayer and everything. And I'm with John, whatever decision is made, we're gonna be here yet.
Yeah.
This is our church, this is where we know God wants us, and I'm for building, obviously too, but we need to be careful, what we do, when we're building, it's gonna take, utilize what we got, the space we got.
Sure.
But don't limit it to that too.
And we don't want the building project to become our ministry. We're not here to
Right.
build buildings. We're here to reach
Right.
people and uplift the Lord Jesus Christ. Randy?
I think maybe do a litmus test and set up, we're starting our push. We want to gauge people's interest and their excitement for this. And we're going to look at a 10-month period and we're going to raise whatever we raise. We're going to come back then. And from that, say, you guys are definitely behind this. We're feeling empowered to keep going. Or conversely, the Lord's not leading us to bite off this much, but we do have
Sure.
a good start to do some remodeling, some things around here for maintenance. And I think it could be a win-win that way. But right now, we're all kind of in a gray area. we're putting out there all of these things, but we haven't got a real litmus on testing where the congregation as a whole is in their giving, not their wants, but
Right.
actually, what are they gonna
Yeah.
participate, what are they gonna commit to?
I was just gonna say that'll be reflected in their giving when we start raising money, and we're very clear that what we want this money to go towards, and people. I actually have. It'll be very similar to Faith Promise. I have pledge cards, and I figured we'll to determine whether we're going to do like a 2-year pledge and see how much money we can raise in a couple of years, and then see where that goes. And if people really have an interest and people really want to see this happen, yeah, I think you're right. I think that'll be a
Making some real judgments and
Right.
plans when you know what that looks like.
yeah. Yes.
Well,
Lou.
I wanted to piggyback on Dan, because I think that you're right. I think if you have a little longer term growth vision, what does that look like? And it seems as though it is gonna be, it's a youth program, So if we're back to what's your priority, the auditorium or the Sunday school classroom thing, you might wanna be emphasizing the Sunday school classroom thing, which now we're back to the portable buildings.
Sure.
Or whatever you need to do to make that part happen. And if that grows heavy, like you pray it would,
Mm-hmm.
then the church is gonna, it's gonna, roll over and snowball into, the adults that we're looking for.
Sure.
To make the rest of it happen. So I think to Randy, I mean, if you're going to, I think there has to be some direction from the leadership of the church,
Mhm.
if you're on the campaign, as to what is it gonna look, what's it gonna consist, is it gonna be, I get what you're saying, if you get $1 million, you can do it all. But if you don't get $1 million, where we get, and I still think there has to be those priorities. First priority, if you chose this, could be Sunday school classroom. Second priority, renovation. Third priority, at this level of income giving or giving level, complete expansion
Sure.
on all three.
I think Pastor's idea of the faith giving cards and kind of springboarding off that, and what Lou's saying too, is that you're kind of starting now to wrap it all into a package that you can present, get excited about,
Mhm.
propose to the congregation, and then have some measurables come back out of that you can start, maybe sensing what the real direction.
Do you guys think it'd be wise to just say, if we raise this much, we're going to do a portable building? That's what you were just saying, right? If we raise this much, we're going to, do this, or if we raise this much, we're going to put on a building. I mean,
You wouldn't even have to say anything.
I kind of like what Randy's saying there too, where we just sit down. Okay, at this point, let's see what we've got.
Then
And
make the decision.
then we're gonna make a decision as to exactly where we're
yeah,
going. And I would like to see that not too terribly, a year or so. I wouldn't like to see it go more than a year.
as far as the fundraising, like we'll
As far
start it
as-
right away, but only for like a year out.
We hit it for
Let's
a
see how
year
it goes.
Yeah.
and see where it goes and see how things are going. I don't want to see something drag out for 2-3 years and now we're going to make a decision.
Right. It
let's
would be
do something.
nice to have access to that money towards renovation. You know what I mean? Like if we do a year of fundraising, but like we were talking about earlier, right? This is money we're raising towards a new building or renovation,
I'm just saying, let's put it out there for a year and then and see how things go. And yes, okay, if it looks like this is, all we're going to be able to do is renovation, then we can kind of make a decision there. Okay, we're going to renovate what we've got. But I don't
Right.
And back it up with prayer, all of us, I mean, even for me, I forget to sometimes pray for the building fund, but, if we just plead with God, he's gonna get tired of hearing us and just answer our prayers.
Sure.
Yeah.
Danny, you're in the back.
What if we did like a quarterly goal? We want to have this amount set aside in our fund by this quarterly business meeting. And if we don't have that, then we need to reevaluate what we're doing and then start.
Yeah. Some benchmarks sort of. Didi?
Or like designate so much this is renovation money that we need to use because we do have things that have to be done
Right.
soon. And so this money is for that. Anything over and above that is towards that year benchmark, that
Yeah.
what happens in a year.
John?
Maybe you do it as a percentage of the money saved. A percentage goes to, that way you got basically two things going, and no matter what they go, you got this much money going to remodel this, or, upkeep.
And this is
much
being saved.
is not getting stolen from the new building fund
Right.
down the line.
With the understanding that all of it's going towards building in some
Yeah,
way,
it's all
right?
going to do something for the church expansion or upkeep, but you kind
Right.
of do, and we can vote on what percentage goes to new building and what percentage goes on to this. And then the second point I wanted to make is the attendance of a church can fluctuate both up and down.
Sure.
Nothing to say that we're gonna keep expanding and growing. We're in a small area here.
Mhm.
And as the older people in the church, if our kids don't attend this church when they get older, and we don't bring new people in, which I'm totally for Dan's idea of really pushing for the bus ministry or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's nothing to say we're gonna keep growing. So I do think before we grow, expand the church, that we should definitely be at our limits. And the more people you get in here, the more people you have giving,
Right.
which is gonna go to
Sure.
speed up the process.
Absolutely.
If we could set a priority list, we talk about all this tonight, if we can get a priority list on things that need to be fixed up in this church right away, and get that voted on, what the priority is there, and then get the percentage, we can immediately start saving for the new building or addition.
And start going through our list
And
of
at
what
the
needs to get
same
done.
time, and as you knock out things in here, people are gonna get excited and they're gonna be more likely to give, because if I give money for something like I want new carpeting in here and it doesn't happen, I'm not gonna be wanting to continue
Right.
giving
Right.
if I don't feel my money is
Being used for
put
that.
to the use. So I think if you start knocking out some things in here, people will get more excited about it and will give
Yeah,
more.
just like the new foyer where Steve did the paint job and flooring,
Yeah.
nursery, that got people excited.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I think if we do new carpeting, just on things that are just in the church that are
Right.
kind of, even paint, slapping on paint, and
Right.
replace-
Yeah, well, it wouldn't cost much to update these chandeliers or whatever. Yeah, lots of
stuff
things
like
you can
that.
do.
People get, oh, new lighting. They
Right.
get excited. It doesn't have to cost much.
Yeah. Yes, Florida.
When they said something about portable classrooms, and I don't know how much this costs, I realize it has to be built, a building kind, but what if we did put up a pole building over there, and we could use that for fellowship hall / teen center and some Sunday school classrooms, I think that would be awesome, just because I know.
And we have thought about that to alleviate the classroom problem. A classroom problem really is a big deal. Okay, we would love to start a couple different classes. It'd love to be great. There was a time, and not so much now, but it's still there, where we had a lot of college age, that age bracket. And we'd love to have a class for them and someone that could organize activities, but there's just no place to put them. There's just no place to do that here. And so something like that, we'd have a room for that. And then some of their kids that are meeting in the kitchen or whatever will actually have their own classroom.
Well, and I also think too, not that no one's brought this up, but I think there's something to be said that when we all have like a fellowship or a cookout, or when we're all get together, it's nice to be able to do that, but we don't have room now in our church downstairs to have a food fellowship, grill out or whatever, like in the wintertime. When we can't go outside and sit, we don't have space to sit everybody inside.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think that brings the closest to our church when we're like eating together and stuff. Maybe that just sounds terrible, but
Yep.
I think I like it when we have fellowships, but we don't have room for that.
I like eating. Amanda,
And
sorry.
Another thing I was, just for, I think of Monroe and Shirley, and like the older people, they have to walk all the way around to get
Yeah.
downstairs, they can't use the stairs. If we had a one level area,
Sure.
they wouldn't have to worry
Multi-purpose.
about that.
Yeah.
So if it was just something that was like right off the
Something like
parking lot,
Make it
they'd
classroom.
very easily be able to go over there.
Yeah. So I think a walkway, I'm sorry, go ahead, Donna.
I was just ice and snow, et cetera. You know, in the wintertime, people are gonna be walking over there.
Sure. Well, and I thought about that. If we had Sunday school and it's actually a separate building, you know, then they come to the service in a different building. And then the only other problem with doing a separate building is once you get into it and it's big enough to actually be, you know, boy, you could fit more people in here in this fellowship area than you can fit in this. Let's just have church over here. Well, then all of a sudden you're just building a new building. You know what I mean? Then you're like, well, we need to have a kitchen or we need a bathrooms. You know, so it's almost like you want to make it without. We decided a new building was just way too expensive. But if we're going to do something for classroom space, sometimes you have to design something that's going to be for that. And then at some point, you're going to say, we're putting a lot of money into something that we could put that money towards, you know, a new building. So that's all kind of tricky. But
even if we built on an addition.
right, and that is true. And I actually think it's a great idea as far as that kind of a building. So I think a great walk away from this meeting with you guys is, and if you agree with me, right? We start raising money, and a certain percentage of that will be a renovation, use that towards renovation, and a certain percentage that would be held for the new building project. As far as the renovation side is concerned, have a very public, where everybody can see the list of things that we're going to get done, right? And if we're knocking out that list in a somewhat timely manner, that's just going to raise some excitement to give more money towards it. Randy?
How does the 40,000 for the submittable plans work into this as far as you'd hate to spend that money and then find where direction is going this way, but yet you need those to do, you know.
So
you're kind of
once
in a catch-22 in a way.
there's a minimum of 6 weeks, for what I was told, to get your submittable plans submitted and ready to go. And they're good for 2 years. So we would need to see where we're at as far as the kind of money we have to decide for us pulling the trigger on getting those plans made.
Not committing to spending that.
6 weeks is actually the approval process. I don't know how long it takes the architect to actually put them together. So, you know, we'd have to know that we're, you know, a few months out as far as if we decide today we're going to go ahead with the submittable plans, we know that we're 3 months out or longer as far as actually ready to go to build.
You
So-
would have the plans the year before that you were gonna
Right.
do it. So you would not pay the 40,000 until you decided, okay, we're gonna build next year.
Right.
How do we pay the 40,000? You're not gonna pay the 40,000 now and then try and save up money. I don't know if that's what you're asking, but that would be something that you would.
You want to raise the money first and know you got the money coming
We would
in
definitely
and then
know
say,
that we were gonna
we need to
build.
put this.
I want to hear that being said, yeah.
Yeah, right. So, yes, Lou.
I just want to emphasize one more time what Dan said about a vision statement.
Yeah,
I think it's critical to you can tell, you know, there's gonna be percentage and renovation and stuff, but I think the concept of the vision statement that Dan brought up is huge, really.
Sure.
I mean, it's, the growth of a church is through its youth.
yeah,
And so if you want to grow your church and if we want to have the outreach that this church can have, you know, I think it probably does need to start at the youth level.
sure.
And which is why I was emphasizing the school space and the Sunday school space, and that is gonna be
So a multi-purpose building with classrooms and something that we could have for the, like a youth type center would really actually do our church very well.
Seems like it might.
I think that we actually have a really good junior church program going right now, and I would feel very comfortable running buses into, you know, having a bus ministry where we pick up kids for church and running them to our church into that junior church program. I think that would be something that would really help. If what you're saying, right? We got
Well,
more
I'm
youth
just
coming
saying,
in.
If I read Dan right on it.
Yeah.
If you're going to solicit the membership to give, they want to have that bigger vision. What are we, you want to know some of the renovation dollars. That's the nuts and bolts part of it. But what's the big vision? What are we really trying to accomplish here? And what's God's mission for us? What's our mission as a church? And I think
Sure.
it is probably gonna be through the youth program. And if you sell it,
Mhm.
and, you know, and it's not sell it like a carnival.
Get people excited about it, though.
But you're
Yeah.
trying to, you know, people gotta get the big picture, what are we gonna do
Some
here?
people can't picture things.
So you
Yeah.
wanna explain that
You're
when
right.
you have your faith giving thing. It's
Sure.
more than just replacing the 1980 lights. And,
Right.
you know, the carpet.
Maybe even having a picture
I would say
of what you want
90s.
to do, like a literal picture of
Yeah.
this is what we want our campus to look like.
Just a
Yeah.
little sketch.
Karen?
So the whole multi-purpose building idea, I mean, that would serve the school too. Because the school could go on rainy days, trying to have them inside is, it's horrible.
Are you asking if they could, school could use that as
No,
well?
I'm saying it would service
Yes.
both our
Yeah.
church and our school.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I mean,
Absolutely.
so then it's not just the church that
Right,
one of our main
And the staff.
ministries here is the school.
absolutely.
So
And,
then
yeah,
you're reinforcing.
hmm
so-
absolutely. John?
The thing with that, if you just did like, started out, you could do that in sections, like you could do just a roof over a concrete slab with maybe one wall on the windy side or something, or have curtains hung up. So it'd start out kind of like a tent at first. You can have your, you know, your meals and stuff out there. And then you can shed in the outside, you know, as another step, you know, and get more different stuff out there and kind of finish off the inside slowly. If you wanted to progress it to
Right.
more classroom type
So it could be
space.
like a pavilion.
But the other thing you could do, I mean, for like youth group things, we got that tent, you could set the tent up, you know, in the summertime.
What tent do
Did we
we have?
have a white tent down here?
Oh, that wasn't ours.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
maybe we
Oh,
could
the
get
big
a
one.
tent.
Yeah.
And that's, we've actually talked a lot about that.
It'd be nice to get a tent like that, yeah. Larry?
If we were to add on to the two homes that are here, can we get it around that $40,000 state submitted plans?
If we were to add on to the,
For youth activities, clubhouse, Sunday school rooms?
yeah,
I think that would be really, really hard on the families that are living there. It's still home.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding what you're saying.
I mean, it's a neat idea. He's wondering, you know, is there any way to get around that $40,000, you know, submitting a plan? But I think in this case, you'd almost have to do it.
What was your idea how to get around it?
Adding on to the current houses that we have on this property, right?
To do what with the,
To have classrooms.
He's just saying connect
Oh.
whatever new building to one of the houses so that it would be part of the house.
Oh, I
instead of
see what
part
you're
of this. But
saying.
if you
Well,
want the public keep
the best-
doing it, it's gotta have a state plan.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, the best possibility would be to add on to the pool building that we have and just make that bigger. That's not everybody's.
Or just clean out the whole building.
Yeah, well, now let's not get personal.
And that's,
I know, really, because we're using Dan and Dee Dee's, you know, house right now
we're
for
we're fine
teens.
with that. The only thing is on a Sunday, you know, it's going back and forth.
Yeah.
Now, Sunday school, then go to class,
If it's
come back
raining
for
or
church.
snowing. yeah.
Well, I think if it were a teen center, the teenagers wouldn't care. They wouldn't care if it's cold
No,
outside and they would love to.
And I would, like, if we had some type of youth center, regardless, you're not gonna use, other than just playing games, and you're not gonna use the pool shed for that.
Yeah.
I mean, all it takes is one person to quit, leave our church and then call the state and say, yeah, they're meeting in a pole shed over there
Yeah.
and they're having church there and then what, you know, it's.
Right. Jimmy?
I know you're running out of time. If you put a portable building right outside here, you can connect it to the door.
Mhm.
You can
Right.
get-
I don't know there's any way of getting around
Around your main.
submittable plans,
What I'm
but
saying, yeah, right. But those are already approved for,
Classroom
yeah, for people
for
that,
public.
you know.
The nice thing about the portable things is you can get more of them if you need more. You can eliminate them if you don't need them. And when it's time to add on the building, you sell them. You're not losing that money.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You're just, it's a good temporary, slow growth thing. And I don't think we should have necessarily trailer house, but they got like these Connex type
Well, it'd be like this.
things.
Yeah.
This was a portable schoolhouse. It was up by Arcadia. No, this one was from Yalesville or Arcadia.
One was from Arcadia, one was from.
This one we got from, and
They were
we
identical.
got them. for
That's what this
$1,000
building
apiece
is.
back then.
but to have something
They're
like
built in
this.
halves. You know, we moved them in one piece, but, I mean, they're designed to split like a modular home or whatever.
And this is a pretty good
But-
sized room.
where would we put them? And that, I mean, that's.
Yeah.
Well, we
Right.
got a flat out there, right?
So it is 8:30. I'm going to have a word of prayer, and you guys are welcome to stick around and continue talking. I'll stay here and talk as long as you want. But if you need to go, or if you want to go, that's perfectly fine too. So I'm gonna pray, and we'll continue talking. Lord, thank you so much for this time we have, and thank you for those who have come out. And we're so thankful, Lord, for the vision that we do have here among us. Lord, help us to focus that vision on what you would have us to do, and help us, Lord, I just pray, Lord, you would provide the money to be able to do these things. And Lord, we just ask that you would guide us in this, and you would provide what we need to do it. And Lord, we know it's your will, Lord, that it will be done. Thank you, Lord, for what you blessed us with in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Any questions or comments or anything else you guys want? Thank you for coming tonight. I think I appreciate your input, and it really is helpful to get the feel of what everybody would like to do. So
where are we gonna go from this point after today? How are we gonna?
So we're going to have another meeting for another church meeting. And then I think we're going to put together a plan with this information to present, and then see her. And I think the plan is going to really include, you can turn that off. The plan is going to include